Jorgensen, and this is Independent in an Instant. Today, I'm talking to my good friend and brilliant casting director, Eric Souliere. Hey, Eric.
Hi.
So, Eric has been a friend and incredible casting director for a long time, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the projects he's worked on.
Well, I have mostly done television. I've done a few independent features. I started off doing mostly television. And then for 7 years, I was at a television casting office called Ulrich Dawson Kreutzer Casting, in which I worked on shows like Nip Tuck, American Horror Story, The Mentalist, and about 2 years ago, I started my own company with my business partner, Sarah Isaacson, and since then we have done shows for NBC, CBS, MTV, ABC Family, all over the board. And during breaks from television, I've done a few independent features for friends of mine. So.
Well, and Eric, we have something really amazing in common that I'm sure a lot of independent filmmakers watching have in common, which is we've both known exactly what we wanted to do since we were little kids.
Yep.
So I was 5 when I knew that I had to make movies for the rest of my life. How old were you?
I remember I was in 6th grade, so I think that's 10 years old, 11 years old.
Just a few years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago. It's kind of a long story, but the short version is it was a hobby of mine to keep track of who actors were in all the TV shows and movies that I was watching, and I would keep notebooks where I would write down who played everyone in my favorite shows and movies, kind of like my own IMDb before there was IMDb. And I somehow learned what a casting director was through reading about filmmaking, that I learned that a casting director's job was to know who all the actors were and suggest actors for parts when they read a script. And I said, that's exactly what I want to do, and it stuck with me.
And you've been doing it ever since.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know that you've worked on some really iconic TV shows, and I know that you've done independent film. And since this series is focused on independent film, a lot of that information on how a producer works with a casting director and how you engage a casting director to cast a project, I feel like is similar and crosses similar lines.
Yeah.
So can we start off by talking about, if a filmmaker doesn't know casting directors, like I'm lucky enough to be friends with you, how would they find out what casting director is right for their project, and if that casting director has connections to the talent they have in mind?
The first logical step would be to look up what films you think is comparable to the one you're making and see who did the casting.
That's great advice.
On IMDb or, yeah, I think that would be the first step.
Super smart. So, casting director on IMDb, that's maybe if you're casting a horror film and they've done 5 films for Jason Blum, that's probably your casting director.
Right.
And then if a casting director doesn't have many credits in your genre, do you think it's safe to assume that you could still try other resources, maybe calling their office, or how would you find references to see if they have connections to talent? Are there any other ways?
I mean, unless you have references or people in common or people in the business who you can ask to see if they have a reputation or not. I mean, really the only way for going in blind is to look at the films they've cast and whom they've attached to them.
Perfect.
I mean, unless you have direct access to agents or managers to ask their reputation and
Got it.
if they're taken seriously or not. It's really looking at their credits and what they've done.
Perfect. And that's really a simple, straightforward way to go, and so smart.
Yeah.
And also, that's the kind of thing, too, where if you see that they've hired the same actor again,
Yeah.
they probably have a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, your work with American Horror Story and Nip Tuck, like, obviously you've worked with Ryan Murphy.
Yeah.
So that's, instant legitimacy.
Yeah, I mean, I was the associate for Eric Dawson on those shows, so it was Eric's relationship, but, Ryan Murphy's name can get you anyone. So that was a luxury that, working on something like that, people automatically take it seriously. If you're going in blind and you don't know if a casting director has the access and you can't figure out their references and ask people about their reputation, and then it's really just about what they've done and whom they've cast.
Perfect. And also personality, right? So if all you have is a meeting or you can get someone on the phone, then it comes down to also if you genuinely like someone and you feel a connection, because they're going to be spending probably a lengthy amount of time with you, right?
Yeah, so, casting directors, like most people in this business, I'm guessing, and especially actors, we have to interview and meet for jobs. And, you know, a lot of it is, we call it the hang factor, whether or not you can get along with them, and if you want to be in the trenches with them for 2 months or 4 months or however long it takes. So yeah.
How much should an independent filmmaker plan to pay a casting director?
Well, every casting director's fee is negotiable, but for an independent film, the standard minimum would be 1% of the budget.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're lucky and your budget's $1 million, you should pay your casting director, you know, $10,000 and so on. So, but again, some casting directors do it for, I mean, I've never heard of anyone doing it for less than that.
Got it.
But casting directors have quotes,
Right.
as do most people in this business. And but 1% of the budget is really the minimum you should expect to pay a casting director.
And is there a
And
ceiling? Or go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, and I was going to say that should usually be for a certain number of weeks.
That was my next question. How long does that buy you?
Normally, you know, that's it's so negotiable and it's so up in the air, and this is kind of an issue that's been coming up with casting directors where they're on a project for a long time and they're not compensated fairly. But, you know, as is with anyone coming on to an independent project, it's going to be about passion and, you know, whether or not somebody wants to be involved. So usually a casting director will be involved and they're passionate about the project. But normally if there's a deadline, if there's a start date for the project, the fee should cover roughly 8 to 10 weeks.
Got it. And so is there, through the union, is there a floor and a ceiling or is it, like you said, it's negotiable, so it can go as high as a casting director is able to negotiate?
Yeah, for independent, we are union, but for independent film, there's really no
rules.
Yeah, for television there is, but for independent film it's really negotiable. But also then, like, most casting directors won't do it if it's not union, because
Got it.
if the casting director is union, you're going to have to contribute benefits. A normal casting director fee is the fee you negotiate, and like I said, the minimum should be 1% of the budget plus benefits, union contribution, plus, you know, hopefully an assistant fee because we can't do it by ourselves.
Right.
So there's all that stuff is negotiable. But.